can start now? I have no idea what the date is. What is it, the 11th of August?
Yes.
Something like that. So here we are on the 11th of August, and I'm having to blow glass even through this mini heat wave, which is really beginning to make me quite cross. And if anyone else comes in the workshop and goes, cool, it's hot in here, as if I haven't noticed, I might just nut them. So don't come in the workshop and say that, please, if that's all right. So here I am having to make some Bracken pieces after this. So Bracken were arranged that I started for the Quantox exhibition last year, and they proved really popular. And it might sound difficult to understand, but sometimes you just forget the things that you've made, and then you see one piece left on the shelf and you go, oh, I've forgotten I made those. Apart from that, I've forgotten how I made them, but I think I know. So I'm making a Bracken vase today. So my life today I spent this morning fixing a kiln, because one of the things that happens in a glass workshop is because it's so hot in here, everything gets brittle, so all the wires get brittle. So if you move something, instead of them being flexible, they can just break. So I had to fix a kiln, I had to do some finishing, and here we are making a Bracken vase. So we're also in the middle of another nice order from the Arran Gallery in Scotland, which we're spending our time doing during the week, which is good. When I moved this workshop, I didn't really realise what impact the river would have on the workshop. It's always very humid here because of the amount of water. Obviously there's a lot of water on the Somerset levels, but it does seem exceptionally humid. So I'm having a right moan today, really. So there we go. So I've got all the colour on. I fiddled around with it to get the decoration I want, and now what I'm doing is I'm just getting it nice and hot, and getting the whole lump of glass back on centre. So the other thing that we've been doing is we decided in October, to celebrate having been in this workshop for 10 years, to have a retrospective exhibition. So I'm going to bring all the bits of glass I've got at home from my past and find all the photographs of, well, not all of them, of the old ranges and old pieces I've done, and we're going to have an exhibition of my work through the ages, which I think will be horribly embarrassing, but everyone else thinks will be a good idea. So we shall see. What I'm dreading is people coming in and going, oh, it used to be better than it is now, and those sort of comments. So if you do come, please don't make those sort of comments. Please say, oh, you've improved a lot, because that would be nice to hear. But when you look back through some of the stuff you've done over the years, it's quite interesting to realise that they were either ahead of their time or behind their time. So there's a few designs that you pick out, you go, oh, I could make those again, they'd fit into now what I'm thinking and how I'm working, which is quite nice to see. Another piece, you just go, why on earth did I make that? But that's another story. I also found some of my old drawings, which were equally strange to see again over these years. And interspersed with them were pictures of me with hair, equally odd. So it takes all that time to get all the piece back to being on centre. And there's still one little bit of it that hasn't melted in. So these pieces were inspired by the abundant foliage on the Quantox. In particular, there's one walk I did with one of my great friends across the bottom of the Quantox, and we had to fight our way up through ferns and brambles and bracken and all sorts of stuff because the footpath seemed to disappear in front of our very eyes. I could take you there, but I can't tell you where it is. It's off the Kingston Road. There's a little bit of a pull-in on the left, and the footpath goes there and walks up towards where the Travellers' Rest used to be. So the Quantocks to me always look like they're fighting back against the humans who are walking on there. So there's bits of them that are very manicured, but other bits where you get a little bit off the beaten track, you can find yourself walking through head-high ferns and bushes and shrubs and all sorts of stuff, all tumble down on top of each other, and I love it. And occasionally you come across a little old dwelling or a little old shed or something. So what I'm doing now is I'm starting to blow up the bubble. I've got to be very careful because I've got the colour on. In some places it overlaps, in some places it's narrow, etc. So I can't blow it too quickly in case, as I did the other day, I blow a hole in the side of the piece, which is quite rare to do. And you can see the piece does not want to stay on centre. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to keep, as far as I can do, the piece on centre at the top near the blowing iron. So I've got to cut it in. This is where this bit of glass will come off the blowing iron so I can finish it by hand. So if you imagine, well, you can see that's hotter than that. But the bottom generally stays hotter than the top. It's also a bit thicker at the bottom. So what I'm going to do now is going to open the glory hole door, and I'm just going to heat up from the shoulder to the base of the piece. And then because that's a bit hotter, when I swing it, it'll stretch down and make the vase shape. So you can see I've just got the piece halfway in. And you look, can you see the piece going around on camera? You can see the lines on it, you can see how the colour's very asymmetrical.
I get really hot down here.
My cameraman's now complaining they're getting hot.
Cameraman.
Camera woman, sorry. Camera person. So now I've got the bottom of this warm. I'm going to come out there, you can see the bottom is warmer than the top. As I swing it, it'll stretch from the shoulder. So I'm putting a little bit of air into it because I want the piece to be a little bit round at the bottom rather than have a concave side. So if you look at it now, you can see that the base of the piece is relatively on centre all the way down, but the base of the piece is off centre. So I don't really mind that too much. I mean, this is quite an asymmetrical, random piece. What I want to do though is I want to get a nice line from the shoulder down to the base there. So I'm just going to flatten the base. I'm just going to put a chalk line around it so I can see where the middle of it is. And I'm going to knock it off onto my knocking off station. So I've got a wet file, and I'm just going to file around where the line was in the top. And there's lots of different ways you could do this. This is just the way I've come up with it works for me. Tap it, and then you've got a cut line there. Flip that back around, and I can see the chalk line on the bottom. Now I've got to make a punty. So I'm going to make a donut punty for this. So you gather a small glass, and this is a solid iron now. Find a bit of marble that's got no colour on, which unfortunately is over here. Hit the floor, back to the marble, and you can see I've got a donut shape at the end there. And this has to go onto my piece of glass. So I can see that I've marked where the middle is. So sticks on, pick it up. It's still wobbly, so if I don't turn it, it'll wobble like that. And now I just put the top of it back in the glory hole. So now if you look at the glory hole, I'm now working from the shoulder up to the neck. So the piece is effectively finished from the shoulder down to the base. I don't really want that to get too hot and lose its structure. The whole piece is still at over 700 degrees. So every now and again you flash the whole thing in just to keep it all warm, because if it ends up getting too cold, it will crack or fall off the punty. Well, it'll fall off the punty first of all, and it won't crack, it'll just break. So I'm heating up the top edge of it now. And because the colours are so inconsistent around them, I've got to be a little bit careful. So I can't just get it really hot and just pull it out in one go. I'm just going to be a little bit cautious. So interestingly, this range, well, interesting, maybe, maybe not, it's called Bracken, and it's done in greens. And I was fiddling around the other day and doing some orange and brown ones, you know, as in the more dead wood, because I've got some images that really showed that up. And when I was making it, I thought, you know, this just looks like exactly like some images I had from years ago of some waves breaking on some rocks with the spray and the froth and all the rest of it. So I did do a couple of blue ones. And they're all right, but they're just not as nice as the green ones. Now, whenever I make a bit of glass, and I've been asked this quite a few times recently, things like, what's your favourite? I don't have a favourite, because if you have a favourite, you try and make everything back to where that favourite is. So what I tend to do is everything I make, I'm tending to look at it and think, how can I make it better? So this one here, I deliberately swirled the top round to get a swirl at the top. And now I'm looking at it going, I don't like that. So the next one I do, I won't do that. I'll make the top slightly different. But you can see how all the colours are all intermingled and falling over each other. Now that has to go away to cool down slowly, so it gets knocked off the puntee. So this join is not that good. So you just knock it off like that. And then I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to try and pick it up and put it in the kiln to cool down slowly. So it's going to go in this little kiln over here, which I repaired this morning. There we go. And now you know as much as I do. Bye for now.